Man.
It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming by. So, before we get started, why don't you give me a little introduction on who you are, what you do, and how you got to get to where you are right now?
Sure. My name is David Shapiro. I'm the owner and managing partner of the law office of David P. Shapiro, where we help good people regain control of their future when charged with a crime. In English, what that means is we're a San Diego-based criminal defense law firm. How I got to where I am today?
Real quick, sorry, David. Can you bring the mic a little bit closer to your mouth?
Sure.
Yeah.
Like that?
Yeah, and have it just point right there. Thank you very much.
All right.
And let's do that again.
Yeah, go for it.
So once again, so who you are, what you do, and how you got to be where you are today.
Sure. My name is David Shapiro. I'm a San Diego-based criminal defense attorney. I'm the owner and managing partner of the law office that bears my name. We help good people regain control of their future when charged with a crime. So it's myself, team of 4 attorneys, 4 assistants. We're located in Bankers Hill on 5th and Laurel. How we got where we are today, it's a lot more than me. I'm going to be using words like we, right? Because where we are today is the product of myself, obviously, and what I've built, but the last couple of years in particular has been a product of the team that we've assembled and the team that's with us today, that's been with us for years, and hopefully be with us for years to come, to be, in my opinion, I'm a little biased, one of San Diego's best, if not the best, criminal defense law firm.
And that's not even you bragging. Others say that as well. So you're legitimately one of the best criminal law defense attorneys in San Diego.
No, I appreciate that. And others say it, and others say it that are validated, right? There's a lot of people that'll talk about, well, I'm the top 72 attorneys under 40, or I'm the top this, or whatever that. All that means is you got the check in first, right? But when you get validated by legitimate enterprises, legitimate companies, legitimate publications, like we are, and a handful of other criminal defense firms and criminal defense attorneys have, that true validation of the work we're doing is being appreciated and is being acknowledged.
So how did you end up becoming an attorney? Like, take me through this journey.
Sure. Most of my family, as far as professionals, ironically enough, my family had there's pretty much a divide. There were some people that were on one end of the law, some people were on the other end of the law. I grew up by 2 brothers, 2 older brothers. One, when I was younger, was a cop. The other one was a district attorney. So I sort of grew up in criminal law along those lines. Went to law school. I started off in college thinking I might do some business, international business. That didn't last very long. Once we started taking economics, I'm like, all right, we're scrapping this. Let's get back to what I wanted to do, what I always knew, what I grew up in. And that was to go to law school and to be a criminal law attorney. How we wound up in criminal defense, that goes back to April 26th, 2004, when I found myself arrested when I was in law school in New Orleans. That moment on, I knew that criminal defense was the way I needed to go based on what I experienced and based on I wanted to make sure the people that we represent, that they never have to go through that.
So what was your experience that triggered that in you? You're like, I want to be a criminal defense attorney.
Sure. That night, I'm my first year of law school. We decided it would be a good idea, we and a bunch of my friends, to go out and celebrate the end of classes, albeit finals hadn't even started yet. And thankfully, as I say, that was the night when I was a .086. It wasn't the night I was a .3, didn't know where my car was at. It wasn't the night where I was a .25, all that stuff, right? So went out, I made a U-turn in a one-way street. Undercover cop says, hey, pull over there, right? And here I am, this is 2006. I had not yet turned 25. I'm 24 years old. And I'm here in a situation where I'm in law school, okay? Upper middle class family, albeit not in Louisiana, from New York. And I was scared, right? I didn't know how long I was going to be in jail. I'd seen jail from the voluntary side, when you go in as a law clerk or you go in as a graduate law student or whatever the case may be, but never as an actual inmate. And feeling what I felt and the uncertainty, the fear, the shame, the embarrassment, I thought about all the people that didn't have the background that I have, that didn't have the family support and the financial resources, and what they must be going through. And I wanted to be a part of changing that.
Could you give me a little bit of insight of when you became a criminal defense attorney? What were your first few, when you first started dealing, I'm sure you did public defending?
No,
when I
first moved to San Diego officially in 2006, I came out here, I took the bar exam in the summer of 2006, and then it's a waiting game, right? So you're waiting 3-4 months, whatever the case may be. And I had interned with the San Diego Public Defender's Office, fantastic office, where I got to be a part of basically co-chairing or trying 3 separate misdemeanor trials that summer. Then I had to take the bar exam twice. Okay, I was one of the many people who aren't successful on the first time. And at the time you think your world's over, you think it's financially you're going to be in ruin and everything that comes with it. It built a character and it built something in me, I think, that I had not really failed in anything up until my life at that point, other than actually getting arrested. But as far as school goes, academics, as far as professional path goes, I had not failed in anything. And I had to overcome that. So I took the bar exam a second time, passed it the second time, and then it was a matter of the public defender's office wasn't hiring. That was going to be my dream job, but the timing wasn't right. So what was I going to do? Sort of open up my own shop. I'm back then, 2007, putting ads on Craigslist, trying to do stuff low budget. You advertise low budget, you get low type of cases, right? So there's a lot of traffic court, a lot of low level stuff, sort of scrambling on my own until I decided in the fall of 2007, enough is enough. I can't be sleeping in my apartment in the East Village in San Diego, meeting clients in Starbucks or meeting them at court. It's time to get an office. It's time to grow up. And I did. And at that point, that opened the doors for the firm that I ultimately joined a couple of months later and everything that came with it.
Wow. So what was the hardest case you ever had to take on? Take us through that journey.
That's a good question. This had to have been 2009. A good friend of mine and fellow criminal defense attorney, a guy by the name of Dan Green, and I took on a case, and we were both working at a firm at the time, and we were, I think, the 3rd and 4th attorneys on the case. And it was a guy that was looking at, I think it was 220 years to life in prison if he was convicted.
Oh, wow.
It was multiple offenses on multiple dates. He had a prior criminal history that was problematic. And the conduct that he was alleged of committing in the case that we took on, had he been convicted of it, he would have died in prison. So we come on the case, and we're, first thing you're looking at what has happened so far, right? You're getting acclimated to everything that's happened, try and play catch up. And you see, okay, decent attorneys before, what can we do different? How are we going to try and save this guy's life? Long story short, over the course of the next year plus or so, we're working this case. We're putting in an absurd amount of time on this case because that's what it needed. End of the day, there were no offers. We're going to trial. We get sent out to trial. We're doing our motions. We're ready to start picking a jury. DA is like, would he take 8 years? Like, oh my God, this is an offer. 8 years when you're facing life. This is stuff you don't usually see. And it's stuff that we went down there, talked to the client. Hey man, honestly, if you did this or not, you got to seriously consider taking 8 years because you're facing the rest of your life in prison here. And there is a decent amount of evidence against you. His credit, I'm not touching that. I'm not going back to prison. Okay? We keep fighting on. Trial gets pushed about a week or so later. DA comes back. Would he take credit for time served and probation? I mean, this is a guy who's been in jail at this point about 2.5 years.
Oh, wow.
Would he take credit for time served and be out? He'd have to eat another conviction, but at that point, it wouldn't have made his record any worse than what it was before, quite frankly. I'm not taking that. I didn't do it. We answer ready for trial. The DA ultimately dismissed the case. So it was a good reminder that when you take on a case, what you see at first is probably not really what happened. And you have to understand that each case matters, not what it may look like on paper, not what wow, we came in this case, it was 220 years to life. We got this guy 8 years. Matters what matters to that client. What it looks like on paper may have been a great deal, but it wasn't a great deal to him. So we had to fight on. In the end, wound up with a significantly better position to save that guy's life.
That's why you're the best. Now, criminal defense attorneys, they get a bad rap. People think, oh, you're just trying to get bad people off. They have these preconceived notions. Can you dispel some of that?
Yeah, sure. A lot of people say, how do you sleep at night? Doing what we do. So I sleep well. I got a beautiful family. I got a beautiful house. I got a beautiful life, right? Because I work hard. It's not about condoning the behavior that our clients are alleged to have committed, right? I'm not out there saying, yeah, we want to see more people victimizing children. We want to see more people doing this, doing that, tormenting society. Absolutely not. And there's this misconception that because you're advocating for someone's constitutional rights, that you're advocating for the conduct, and we're not. A lot of times people told me when I was younger, oh, wait till you have a family of your own. You'll never want to touch a sexual assault case. You'll never want to touch a child molest case. And I said to them, I'm like, you're assuming that I think that's okay to begin with. I don't. But you know what's not okay? Is selectively choosing, oh, I think this client's worth constitutional protections, but this person isn't. Because of the accusations, right? We just picked a jury in August of 2023 on a homicide case. And one of the potential jurors is talking about how he's biased against all criminal defense attorneys. We knew this guy was going to be gone from the jury panel, but I'm like, all right, let's talk about that a little bit. Why? Well, they're all slimy. Based on what? Based on the 2 or 3 that I know. Okay, cool. So you're a CEO. And because I don't like you and your answers I think are ridiculous and uneducated and misinformed, then now I'm going to have a bias against every CEO nationwide that I ever meet. Come on. Come on. And the reality is people will talk bad about criminal defense attorneys until they need one.
Absolutely.
Until their husband gets arrested, until their wife gets arrested, until their son gets arrested or their brother gets arrested, and then we're everybody's best friend. So the main thing that I could say out there is as long as you understand, yeah, we got a job to do. This is something we chose, right? The right criminal defense attorneys, the best ones, work hard. They work tirelessly for their clients. It never means they condone the conduct. They just want to make sure that if stuff is done the right way, quite frankly, the cops do their job the right way, DA does their job ethically the right way, and the evidence is there, then they'll probably get a conviction. But if it's not, who's gonna be that shield? Who's gonna stop the cops from doing things the wrong way? Who's gonna enforce the law if the DA won't? Who's gonna correct a judge or call a judge out on their mistakes if there is one? There's your criminal defense attorney.
Exactly. And also, not everyone who's accused is guilty. A lot of people are being accused of crimes they didn't commit.
Without question. And not only that, a lot of times people are being accused of a certain level of crime, right? That maybe they committed something or did something, but not necessarily what's charged, right? And that goes back to why it's so significant not to be talking when you're under investigation, because you're given life sometimes to an investigation by corroborating or confirming what people are saying, and then you're getting to the 50-yard line as opposed to being quiet and let them go that full 100 yards to even charge you with an offense.
Exactly. Absolutely. I watched that one Netflix documentary. Was it the Central Park 5?
Okay.
Where those 5 kids got accused of a crime they did not commit, but they had to suffer the consequences of being accused of that.
Right, and that's the thing. A lot of times people are like, well, what's the big deal? They at the end the justice was done, right? But okay, how many months they spent in jail? How much did their reputation take a hit? How much stress and how many sleepless nights did their mothers have? Did their fathers have? Did their brothers have? Their family have? That's where the criminal defense attorney is so important, right? To step in and listen. There's going to be injustice everywhere. No matter how good of a lawyer you have, sometimes people will get convicted. Juries will do weird things, okay, good and bad. But the reality is, the right attorney at the right time, most things are possible.
Right. And I even heard, and I know this is true, that depending on where you are in the city, if you're in a bad part of the city, they're going to try to throw the book at you. But if let's say you grew up in San Diego, La Jolla, they'll give you a slap on the wrist.
Well, I mean, that depends, right? Depends on what you're accused of, right? So if you're accused of committing, a life top felony, meaning a special circumstances murder, it doesn't really matter, right? If the case can be proven, it could be proven. And, San Diego is one of the more progressive jurisdictions or one of the more progressive cities as far as understanding things and have real and individualized justice concept, right? But the reality is the DA is not going to be doing that digging to learn about you as the criminally accused. That's got to come from the attorney. That's got to come from the law firm, their team, right? Because if they're not going to know about you, no one's going to know about you. And then you're going to be treated exactly the same as everybody else who's charged with the same offense. And the worst thing you could do is to hire a law firm that's going to treat you like the cops treat you, that's going to treat you like the district attorney will treat you, that'll treat you like, God forbid, a jury, if the case goes to trial, will treat you. You got to make sure you're going with the team that understands you and wants to craft an individualized plan to your situation based on what your goals are and what a realistic outcome is to protect your freedom and to protect your future moving forward.
Has there ever been a case, what's an example of a case that you had to turn down?
Sure. Well, there's a couple of cases, right? We have a pretty thorough screening process at our firm as far as, it has to be a San Diego-based criminal defense case. right? Where there's at least an intention of hiring a lawyer, right? We're a private criminal defense law firm. We currently do not accept court-appointed work. So everything we have is private payments from the client. But that's not the end-all be-all, right? Because if a client is going to be, or prospective client is going to be difficult, is not going to want to go with our system of how we do things, right? We're very systematized, very structured in the case evaluation process. That's usually a bad sign, right? Because if you're not on your best behavior, if you're not willing to listen to what we're telling you at your darkest moment when you're trying to interview a law firm or a lawyer, how's it going to be when things get tough later on? So we've turned that down. Obviously, there's conflict sometimes. If you represented someone else previously, ethically, you can't represent someone because you have converging interest. But, a lot of times if it's just not a good personality fit, we tell people all the time, it's not just that we're a good fit for you as a potential client. You have to be a good fit for us because it's not fair if it's not fit to take your money and not be able to maximize the results that we could get for you.
Why is it so important let me ask you this. What do you think about public defenders?
I think San Diego's public defender system is one of the better systems in the country. I know many people that have come through that office that are still at that office. Some of my mentors have worked there at that office, have literally lived and died in that office. And it is a fantastic place to be. It's a great place to learn. It's a place I wanted to be a part of. Unfortunately, when I passed the bar, they weren't hiring in 2007. But like any other place, there's good and bad, right? We tell our clients or potential clients who, when we go through the options of what they have, right? First is, do you financially qualify for the services of the public defender, right? If you do, okay, you may not have the money to hire a private attorney, right? And then the hope is you get someone fantastic over there and you're not paying any money, right? You get the best of both worlds. You save whatever money you have. You don't spend money you don't have on substandard representation. And you may have someone who's great over there. And there's this belief that we do a real good job, I think, and continue to do a good job, and hopefully a better job in years to come, of trying to prevent people from just hiring any private attorney automatically thinking they're better than a public defender, because that's not the case, right? It's not the case. We believe that really when you're talking about a private criminal defense attorney or a private criminal defense law firm, you're really only dealing with the top 10 to 15%. Mm-hmm. The rest, stay with the public defender no matter what, no matter what. The other 15%, then it depends, right? If you can't qualify, if you make too much money, then they have thin resources. They should be representing the people who qualify for their services, not someone who's making six figures driving a six-figure car, right? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But I am the last person that will say anything bad about the public defender's office, but with the caveat that just like any private criminal defense office or any private criminal defense law firm, sometimes there are good, there are bad, there are skilled, there are indifferent. There are hard workers. There are lazy. There are people that are entitled. There are people that will work tirelessly if it means saving a client 30 days in jail. It's like anywhere else. You just got to do your research. But what you don't have, if you go that route, is you don't have a lot of times a choice of who actually represents you. So it's a lot of hope. It's a lot of wait and see. And you may wind up in great hands, but you might not, like anywhere else.
What are some questions that someone who's facing criminal charges and they're looking for an attorney, what are some questions when they're looking for an attorney? What questions should they be asking to know that's the right attorney for them?
Sure. First thing is you want to make sure you're hiring a criminal defense law firm. Okay, so you break that down in a couple of ways. One is you want a firm that handles pretty much, if not exclusively, pretty much a vast majority of their cases must be criminal defense. You don't want a jack of all trades, right? Door law, we call it. Anything that walks in the door, we'll take it. I'll be the first to say that if I wasn't doing criminal defense and pretty much everyone at my firm wasn't doing criminal defense, I don't know what we'd be doing. Because you could ask me a question about personal injury, you could ask me a question about trust and estates, I wouldn't even know where to begin. Would not even know where to begin. So the first thing you want to make sure you're hiring someone that handles exclusively or pretty much close to it criminal defense. The other thing I tell people all the time is you want to make sure you're hiring a criminal defense firm as well, right? My firm started in 2010. And in 2010, it was just me, right? I may have had someone part-time that was answering the phones here and there, but the reality was I was putting the stamps on the letters. I was mailing the letters. I was doing the books. I was doing everything, right? Imaginable, anything and everything imaginable. Bottom line is I am a better value and asset to the clients of the firm today than I ever was in the past because we have a firm. Like I said, there's 4 attorneys at the firm right now. There's 4 assistants at the firm right now. So if I'm in court, if I'm in trial, client's got an issue, it's not, oh, David will get back to you in 2 weeks. It's, what do you need? What can we help with? There's other people here that could step up and step in, especially on the more serious, more complicated cases, because the reality is that criminal defense attorneys, we're not taking just one case. We need multiple cases. It is a business. It needs to be run like a business, and you want to look at a firm that has the structure, that has the organization like a business to make sure that they have your best interest in heart when everything's on the line.
I bet it's so much easier to focus on the client and really be an asset to them as a firm when you can focus on the case, on the details, on coming up with an argument and all that stuff, versus, like you said, like a one-man show who he has to lick the stamps and type in the paper and put in the do the paperwork, where his mind is all over the place. He can't just focus 100% on your case. He has to sort of run his business solo and therefore wear many hats, and those hats take away from your case. And that's why it's so important to hire a firm and not just a solo practitioner. Now, you said running a firm is like a business. Can you delve into some reasons why, or like the experience on growing your firm and starting to treating it like a business and getting to where you're at today as one of the top criminal defense firms here in California, in San Diego specifically?
Sure. I mean, it's not, I think I might have said actually myself, I said like a business, right? Running it like a business. The reality is you run it, it is a business. Mm-hmm. And once I embraced that and I understood it and embraced it, that's when the firm took off. Because, a lot of people have this call it like an antiquated belief, right? That the marketing's a dirty word, right? That if you're out there, if you're doing marketing, you're doing something wrong, right? You're doing something sleazy, you're doing something shady. Come on. Right? The same people who say that are talking about how they don't market on social media. It's like, I guess what? You're marketing, right? So a lot of times people talk about that and they'll say, oh, it's a bad thing. As far as running it like a business, because it is a business, I came to the realization that in order to help more people than I could help as an individual, I needed to run a business, right? Because there's only so many number of cases that myself could have taken up until, 2016 when I had this epiphany of sorts and said, okay, I've hit my capabilities. The only other way to help more people is to take on more cases, which would then water down the product unless I bring on more people to this business. And once I realized that, and once I realized that in order to take care of your clients, you need to make sure you have the right people in place. You need to take care of your team. You need to make sure that things are run with at least some semblance of structure and organization, and you have some mechanisms and means to understand where the next case is coming from, what the appropriate fee is for certain cases. It's not just, it's a slow month, so we're going to charge less. It's a good month, let's charge more. That's lack of structure. That's disarray. No one should want a firm or a lawyer that's that disoriented, that lacks that type of structure, because if you're that bad with your business, if you're that bad with your money, how are you going to be with your client's freedom? How are you going to be with their money? And that's something that we really try and import when they're like, oh, I heard good things about this firm or this lawyer. They're a mess. They're a mess. And they're like, oh, your firm's so much more structured. We had the call. You called at the time you said. We went through the outline that you gave us. Exactly. That's a preview of what you should expect. And quite frankly, it's not really the greatest testament about what we've built. It's more of an indictment on everybody else. We're doing things the right way. We welcome people to do the same.
How do you go about finding the right attorneys to work in your firm? What's the process with that?
Sure. Some of it is sort of falling in our lap, right? And falling in my lap. Going back to 2018, when my now partner at the firm, Stefano Malea, left the firm he was at. We were all good friends, and decided to come on as my number 2 at the firm and the second attorney in the firm's history. The first obviously being me from 2010 to 2018. I knew Stefano for years. Stefano was an intern when I was working at the firm I was at before I started my own firm. That was easy. Other attorneys have come in where they've reached out and we sort of knew who they were and maybe were one person removed, right? And we've been able to lean on people that know them well and know that they would be a good fit, knowing how I run the business, knowing what I demand of the people that work at my firm, knowing what we demand of ourselves and each other to protect our clients' freedom and future, right? Because that pressure is a privilege to represent these people in their time of need. Now, we have not been perfect with that. We have not been perfect with hires. I'll be the first to admit that. And that falls on no one's shoulders more than mine, right? But it's a learning process, right? And the reality is you're never going to be perfect in things. There needs to be lessons in the losses, and there have been some big ones. But the reality is we keep going. There have been bumps in the road, but we're still moving forward. And I really don't ever believe the way the firm is set up, certainly with the way I run it, that there may be bumps in the road, but we'll always be moving forward. And there's really going to be nothing that can, and certainly no one, that can derail the progress that we're making to continue to be an integral part in the San Diego community, even beyond criminal defense, really trying to make differences in people's lives more than just the people we represent in court.
Now, I know that you work 8 days a week, 25 hours a day. How do you balance working so much while simultaneously having a family and having other obligations? What's the balance for that?
Yeah, I laugh sometimes. People are like, oh, I need to have better work-life balance. It's like, okay, no one's making you be a criminal defense attorney, right? There's many other professions within the legal profession that might not be as demanding, that might not be as stressful, that might be better suited for you. That's fine. There's no judgment there. But the reality is to come into a criminal defense role and say, oh, I only want to work, Monday, Wednesday, Friday for 4 or 5 hours a day. Well, you're selling yourself short. Hopefully you're not selling your clients short. But the reality is the worst thing is when you're a good attorney and you're leaving stuff on the table. You're leaving people that you could help, right? Because you don't want to commit to it. So I think the number one rule that I would say, right, is accept the fact that it's never going to be a perfect balance. There are going to be some days when you feel like a failure at home to be a success at the office. There are going to be some times when you feel like a failure at the office to be a success at home. You got to embrace it. And I think as long as you communicate with your family, as long as you communicate with your firm, and they know that you're maximizing your time when you're away from home, you're maximizing your time at work so you could be present when you're home in that moment and vice versa, and communicate that with everyone, I think you give yourself a shot.
Man, that's great advice. I don't believe that there is a such thing as work-life balance. I feel like there's always going to be, the balance is always going to be tilted on one side or the other. It's either tilted in where you're not working as much as you should, or it's tilted where you're not having a personal life as much as you like, right? And I think it depends on where you're at in life. And correct me if I'm wrong. I heard somebody say this, and he said it the best. I've never heard anyone talk, because people always want to talk about work-life balance. You got to balance it all. And in my own life, I'm like, I've never felt that balance. And every time I try to get it balanced, it always tips on one side or the other. And it's like, well, if you're trying to run a business, your 100% focus should be on your business. And you do that for years and years and years. And then eventually you'll be successful enough, you'll be able to retire or whatever. And then the balance can shift to, I just want to have fun. I don't have to run the business no more. And now my 100% focus is on just having fun and enjoying my life. But to think that you're going to have work-life balance, I don't think it exists. What do you think?
Well, I think you're setting yourself up probably to be mediocre in both. Mm-hmm. Mediocre in work, mediocre in life, right? You could pick one and excel, but then you're shortchanging the other, right? Or you could do your best to, on certain days, be really great here, really great there, right? There's a saying that I live my life by now at 42 years old: live like most people won't now, so you could live like most people can't later, right? And what that means is you put in the work now. So when people are tapping out, oh, I did enough today. Okay, tell that to your client. I did enough today. I did enough today. And that could be the same thing. Oh, I did enough today as a father. Tell that to your daughter. You know what I mean? You do your best now in everything you do, right? And you communicate and you talk and you put in the work to build a better day. Now, it's not just work endlessly without a goal in mind, without a vision in mind, right? But you have to, there's no substitute for the work. Mm-hmm. Unless you're independently wealthy or unless you stumble into the luckiest thing, right, which you can't control, right? What's that saying? Hope is not a strategy, right?
Yeah, it's not.
Luck is not a strategy, but people look at they're like, oh, you're so lucky. It's like, nah, I don't think so. It's like, I don't know if my wife would agree that I've been lucky to grow this business and have the people I have. It's been hard work. It's been a lot of sacrifice, it's been a lot of financial sacrifice at times. Because when you own the business, you're responsible for it. May not be the greatest marketing idea in the world, but when your name's on the sign, right? Your name's on the sign, your name's on the door. You got to keep it afloat more than anybody else can, more than anybody else should, quite frankly. And I think we as business owners or as entrepreneurs need to understand that. The sooner we accept it, the better we can move forward, right? There was a time in my life when it was like, how come so-and-so's not working like I'm working? How come so-and-so? It's not their business. And there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. You could still get the most out of your people understanding what their limits are, but we will never, if someone's limits are below our standards, they can't be there. And there's nothing wrong with that. Doesn't mean I'm a bad person, doesn't mean they're a bad person. Just means it's no longer a good fit.
Exactly. And that's why you guys are the best, because everyone meets those standards. Now, this is a marketing podcast as well as a entrepreneurship podcast. They sort of go hand in hand, right? If you're not really an entrepreneur, what are you marketing? No matter what you're doing, if you're doing music or law or videos, you gotta have marketing. You have to have marketing. Now, you said when you first started marketing, you were doing Craigslist marketing.
Back in 2007, it was Craigslist. It was some of these legal websites that I wouldn't touch with someone else's money right now, let alone my own. But yeah, I didn't know.
So
I didn't know.
Take me through the journey of your marketing journey when you first started in 2007 to now in 2023.
Sure. Early on, right? You're a product of your environment in the sense of, you see great criminal defense attorneys that you may know, that you may have befriended, and you're like, okay, how are they getting cases? And there's this belief that, well, you're a good lawyer, people, keep doing good work hard, take care of your clients, and you'll just get business. To a degree, yeah, that's absolutely right? You can't be a bad lawyer because eventually people are going to figure it out, right? You could have the greatest marketing and sales in the world, but when they realize that they're not getting what they thought, they're not going to stick around. You're not going to get these awards. You're not going to get this recognition. You're not going to have these client satisfaction, right? But the real change has been understanding that in order to market, right, you have to put yourself out there. You have to put yourself out there, be willing to take chances, be willing to do things like podcasts, be willing to do things like videos, be willing to post stuff out there, because if no one knows who you are, you could be the best lawyer in the world. I will be the first to say there are a number of criminal defense attorneys in San Diego who I believe are better than I am from a pure skill set perspective, right? There are a couple of people that have been doing it longer than I have at a comparably high level, if not higher, okay? But that doesn't mean that they're the best. And the reason why is because if people don't know who you are, you can't help a lot of people. Right? So someone could say, oh, this guy's been doing it, or this woman's been doing it for 40 years at a high level. That's great. But how many people are they really helping if they're taking 10 cases a year? Now, if that makes them happy, God bless. Right? But we're in the position where we're trying to balance between being able to help as many people as possible, but never watering down the product. Right? And that's the balance for sustainability. There have been a lot of fly-by-night criminal defense firms in San Diego over the years. There have been some that have been more longer lasting, right? Great firms. The great firms are the ones that could balance between growth but never diluting the product. My firm could be 3 times the size it is right now if I wanted it to be, right? But it wouldn't have the reputation. Why? Because we wouldn't have the right people in place. We'd be settling. We'd be keeping people or bringing in people that don't meet our standards. And that's a disservice to anybody and everybody, to our clients, to the team, quite frankly, to the owner, me, right, to funding people's lifestyles that aren't necessarily moving the needle forward on our reputation, on our standing in the community.
Now, what are you doing for marketing now, and what do you see that has worked the best for you?
Sure. A lot of things we've been doing is one is brand awareness has been helpful. Now, brand awareness is difficult, right? Because you read marketing books, you speak to coaches and great minds, right, in business. And some of them will say, well, you can't really have a quantifiable return on investment with branding, right? It's because it's rarely people will say, oh, or they'll say, I heard your name in the community. Well, that's a product usually of branding, right? But you don't really know, was it from the videos we did? Was it from the charity work we've done? Was it from the news interview I did? Was it from something somebody else in my firm did, a book or an article they wrote or an event they went to on behalf of the firm? You don't really know, right? So a lot of times people frown upon it. But branding and being a fixture or trying to be a fixture in the community to effectuate change beyond the courtroom has been a big thing in our world. We are, and whereas I will defer to attorneys that have been doing it longer at a comparably high level, right? Is, hey, these people, hats off to them. I will say that they are probably better, right? I will go on record and say, as far as community involvement goes, as far as trying to effectuate change, as of 2023, I have not been aware in 17 years in San Diego as an attorney, I have not been aware of any firm that's done more than we have. And again, that's just a starting point for us. More of an indictment on everybody else, right? This is what we should be doing as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, is not just to say, okay, cool, I paid my people, they're happy, everything else is coming into me and my family. Well, obviously you got to take care of yourself before you take care of anyone else. But the reality is to reinvest that in the community, to reinvest that in sponsorships, to reinvest that in programs that we put on. A lot of people look at us and like, what are you guys doing? Nobody does that. What is a criminal defense firm, right, hosting an event with Coach Rob Mendez in June of 2022? People say, what are you doing? You're throwing away money. Rob Mendez, born without arms, born without legs, an ESPY award winner for perseverance. Lives in San Diego right now. Met Rob at an event, right, over at Cali Strong. Met Rob at an event, and so inspirational, right? Oh, I'm tired. I only slept 5 hours last night. I only slept 4 hours. Oh, I have a cough. I'm not going to go in today. Oh, I lost my voice. I'm not going to work today. Really? This guy gets up every single day without arms, without legs, and lives his life to inspire thousands of people, not just kids that he coaches in football, adults, entrepreneurs, so on and so forth. So what do you think? You're going to get a case out of that by hosting that event? I don't want a case out of that. It was a value to the community that he could inspire on my firm's dollar. If he could inspire 7 or 8 other people in the audience, we've done more for the community. Why not? So it doesn't always have to be a direct return. It doesn't always have to lead to a case. Sometimes just doing the right thing at the right time, people will resonate to that. They'll attract to that because they see who you are.
Right, and people don't realize that there's different types of marketing. There's sales marketing, there's brand marketing, and they both are very important and pivotal, right? For example, Nike, they put a lot of money in brand marketing. When you're watching their commercials and their ads, they're not selling you on a product. They're selling you on the lifestyle, right? That's a product of brand marketing. And a lot of people who think they don't need it, I feel like it's a cope because they don't understand it. They're scared of it. They're scared to put themselves out there. They don't understand that when you put yourself out there in your brand and you're helping out the community and you're putting yourself out there on social media and LinkedIn and TikTok, Instagram, all that stuff, right? And you're showing what you're doing, like you'll have a lot of people and they'll be like, well, I do all this stuff, but I don't want the awareness of it. And that sounds noble and humble, but when you really break it down, people are just scared to put themselves out there, right? And if, like you said, if people don't know who you are, you can't help that many people. And you say you want to be here for the community, you say you want to be here to help people, but how are you going to help people if they don't know that you can help them?
Exactly.
So you got to put yourself out there, and I hate to say, but it's a cope of insecurity when you don't want to put yourself out there. Not every time, but a lot of times, because I've talking to a lot of people, and when we get really down to it, they're like, "Well, I don't really, like to put myself out there," and it's understandable. But so you've been working with me and my team on your social media marketing. How has that been going for you? How do you like that? Do you like working for me?
Love it. It's been fantastic, because what I like about working for you and your team, right, is that you.
I apologize. Not working for me, working with me.
right. Or working with you, right?
Yeah.
What I enjoy working with you, right, these past couple of months is you call me out if I'm slacking, and I know that you ain't gonna be slacking, right? And that's the whole thing. Yeah, there are things that to get comfortable being uncomfortable, and that's in every aspect. And that never goes away, right? Because that goes away, then you're done. Like you're too comfortable, and you see sometimes people get to a certain point in their life, and it's really depressing and scary when they get to that point in their life, and they're 35, 36 years old, 40 years old, and they're like, all right, I'm done. Okay, cool. Let me know what the secret is to live for the next, God willing, 40, 50 years, right? We're just like that, tapping out. Oh, I hit my potential, I'm good. Right? But you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And working with doing these videos, getting that stuff out there, again, right? Admittedly, are people calling my firm and saying, I saw you on YouTube, I saw you on Instagram? Probably not as much as what a lot of people would want to see in a direct response, right? Or an ROI perspective. But I tell you what, a lot of professional connections, a lot of networking connections, a lot of community connections, that door has been opened through the video. And it is also important to the consumer who may already know about you, who may be thinking about hiring you. And then by watching the videos, by watching the frequency of the videos, by watching the discipline you have in doing the videos and posting the videos, just gets a little piece about what you're about, and gets a piece of what you're about and what they're not about. The other people, the other firms, the other men and women out there that might be vying for that business, for that big case. And that is invaluable, especially when you identify the client you want. And if you want a client that's going to do research and look at awards and look beyond a fancy website, look beyond page one of Google. You want to get to know the attorney, you want to get to know the firm that you're potentially investing thousands of dollars, and more important than that, your trust in representing, and video is a great way to do that. And I've seen few, if any, that do it as good as you.
Man, I really appreciate that. And something I've noticed with my clients recently, and what they're happy about, is some of my clients, they really can't take on any more work. So they're like, we're already busy, but they still want to do the marketing, because maybe they're not directly marketing to the customer, to the client, right? They're marketing to other attorneys who they want to grow their team. So they're using the videos to be the expert in their field, to be that cool firm, that top firm. And because of the consistency of the videos, they're able to get top lawyers interested in working for their firm, which excites them. They're able to get more referrals. So when other attorneys refer cases, they're top of mind. So it's not just always direct to consumer, right? It's marketing yourself to other people in your field to get better employees, to get better referrals, because you're always on top of mind in a professional sense.
It is absolutely essential. It is absolutely essential, because so many times over the years, you remember somebody to send an outbound referral to after it's too late, right? And you're like, oh yeah, I forgot about that person. Well, why? Because they're not top of mind, right? And a lot, what are you posting for 5 days a week? You're putting all these videos out there. It's too much. People are gonna get turned off. Okay, mute my page. Unfollow me. We're cool, right? I got a lot of things in my life that I could be more offended about than someone I barely know, or even people I do know unfollowing or blocking me, right? The reality is you also need to not just be top of mind with junk out there. It's got to be top of mind with some value, right? So when we start doing, protect your freedom, protect your future, know your rights, each of those videos has value to someone. And if I don't think they do, or I don't think they will, I won't post it. Right? So it's not just, on this Flag Day, the law office of David P. Shapiro wants you to salute our country. Great message, right? There's nothing wrong with that, but everybody else does it. So that's like bad top of mind awareness. That's like
corny.
You're right. You're clogging my timeline. I'm spending 5 minutes less with my family because I'm trying to get to something relevant, and I'm skipping past your, Happy Easter from the law office of David P. Shapiro. Does that have any value? If it doesn't have value, it's wasting time. So as long as we're putting value, and as long as you as a business owner, an entrepreneur, or as an attorney, as an associate, as whatever, are putting value out there, anybody's got a problem with it, that's more of a reflection on them than it is on you. So when people are like, oh, you in these videos, give it up. Okay, cool. I know where we stand. It's like either encourage it or stay out of the way, because it's happening either way.
And that's something, when we first started working with each other in the beginning of the year, that's something you told me. You're like, I don't want to do these TikTok dances. You know what I mean? That's not what the firm's about. I don't want to have to sing and dance and all that stuff and make yourself out to be a clown. And that's why I feel like we were the right fit, because I was like, perfect, because we don't do that. We do value marketing versus everyone. And I pay attention to the competition. I'm paying attention to the other attorneys, the other firms. And what they're doing is, and I hate to say that, but I'm trying to put myself more out there. I'm trying to be like less like holding the information and more like giving it out. So what you're doing, what people are doing wrong, and potentially what you're probably doing wrong, not you, but other people out there watching this, is you're trying to force the sale. It's all about me. Hey, I'm this person at this law firm. People are clicking off. They don't want to see that. People want value. And if you can provide them value and value quickly, and if they want to more in-depth answers, they could go onto the YouTube and get the more in-depth answers, but you could pique their interest with the short-form content. You're going to be a lot more successful because a lot more people are going to want to watch your content than, hey, I'm so-and-so at this law firm, and you should use me because of this. People don't want to be sold. They want to feel like you're a friend.
Absolutely, yeah. There's no video I think that we're putting out there, certainly not on your watch, right? That's like you see people advertise, like, oh, I went to this law school. Who cares? It was 30 years ago, dude. Who cares what school you went to, right? I've been a lawyer for 40 years. You're wasting time. I don't care. You've been mediocre for 40 years, right? I'd rather be at the top of my profession for 17.
Exactly.
Right? So a lot of people do it because they do things based on what everybody else is doing. Now, somewhere in between that and, dancing and pouring water over my head and clowning around, right? Because there's a certain seriousness and professionalism that's got to be there, right? Now, to each their own, right? If people are doing that and they're getting clients and they're helping people, doing good quality work, hey, whatever works for you, I'm not gonna really clown it, right? But that's not me. That's certainly not my firm. But at the same time, if we're getting a hi, my name is David Shapiro, and today I'd like to talk to you about blah, 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 blah. Well, at our firm, whatever. What is effective is continuing that conversation in people's heads, right? So meaning that they're already freaking out if you're under investigation for a crime. God forbid if you're under investigation for something serious, right? The cases that we really thrive on, the most serious of the most serious stuff. They do not, or certainly should not, care where I went to law school, or quite frankly, even how long I've been a lawyer, right? Do they know me? And more important than me, unless I'm the attorney on the case, do they know my firm? Can they trust us? And probably in third, but of significance, do they like us, right? Know, like, and trust, or know, trust, and like. Mm-hmm. And to be able to do that in 30 seconds on a video may not, but it piques people's interest. And the more they dig and the more they see, the more that's there. The substance is there. And that's the thing sometimes, too. You get people to put, 30 seconds of a clip, or they may post once a month, and it's like, oh, cool, really nice post, inspirational story. When's the next one? Right? Exactly. And then you forget they exist. So know, like, and trust, and to be able to do that through video is awesome, because then by the time these clients talk to us, They have a good idea what we're about, and they trust us, and it's not this inherent distrust of lawyers, let alone criminal defense attorneys. And that could go a long way in letting people their guard down so we could really help them. So we can have this tough conversation with them and tell them what they need to know, not what they just want to hear, what so many people will do, right? They'll play games, they'll kiss their butt the whole time, and then they'll be afraid of a tough conversation because they're afraid of the tough conversation with themselves. That's why they're not out there hustling. That's why they're not comfortable being uncomfortable. That's why they're going 85%, 100% of the time.
Exactly. And like you're saying, frequency of videos, here at Loudr Media, we preach quantity plus quality. And the reason why is people are addicted to their phones. Like we're all doing, like I'm about to get this grayscale on my phone to take away all the color. So it's not so slot machine-like, right? To help me focus so I don't get distracted when I gotta go on my phone, look up something, and then it's like, oh, I got notification. Oh, let me respond to all these emails. Let me respond to all these messages. But people scroll and they're waiting, and I like to say it's like they're waiting for your episode. They're hitting that scroll. They're refreshing their page, just hoping to like some new fresh content. And that's why we preach quantity, because people are waiting for that episode of David Shapiro to come on today so they could get that 30 seconds or that 1 minute to be able to watch it, so they have something to do. So that's very important. So that's why quantity and consistency is important over time. Lastly, I want to ask you, so do you have any advice, or what advice would you give to any aspiring attorney or aspiring entrepreneur, or both, an attorney who wants to eventually grow their law firm to be as big as yours? What kind of advice would you give that young man or young woman?
Sure. First thing is, from 2010 to 2016, right? I lived by this belief that, just be a good lawyer and you'll do whatever you need to do. And, it was nice. I lived relatively comfortably, building up a reputation. But had I known what I know now, those first 6 years could have happened in about 6 months probably, right? You have to be consistent. You have to be consistent in your work ethic. It's not only on the days you feel good, you got to go all in, right? And that's across the board, right? How you do anything is how you do everything, right? You're a bad mother, a bad father, an inconsistent mother, an inconsistent father, you're going to be an inconsistent attorney, right? You may be having a bad day. You can't let your team see that. I guilty as that as anyone, right? But you got to minimize that, right? You may be having a bad day. You can't act up in court in front of a judge, because you build a reputation that could take you 17 years and you could lose it like that, right? And people don't think like that, right? They don't think like that. They're in the moment, right? And that's a product, sort of what we talked about earlier. It's all right now, right now, right now, right now. That's great, but you also got to think big picture. So understand, good friend of mine, very, very strong mentor in my life, tells me all the time. He goes, the uniform is always on. I talked about it when my firm won the Torch Award for Ethics in 2022 by the Better Business Bureau. I still think we're the only criminal defense attorney ever to win it. I think we were the only law firm nominated last year. I'm not sure when the last time a law firm was nominated, let alone a criminal defense firm was nominated. And when I got up there and I took that award, I got choked up because I was thinking about all the people like you see like playing through your entire life, right? That from my father as a kid to my brothers to everything. The uniform is always on, I'm told almost weekly now, right? And it's not a uniform like a suit. It's not a uniform like, whether you're a bus driver, whether you're an attorney, whether you're somewhere in between, whatever. It's not about that. You never know who's watching. You never know who's, going to have a positive experience, or even worse, a negative experience by something you see and something you do. And a lot of people shy away from that, right? They don't want to go out because they don't want to do that. They think that just because, I'm a lawyer, it's a Saturday, I could act like a fool. I don't have consequences. The reality is, if you want to be a fixture in a community, and we are far from it, but I'd like to think we're on our way, you got to live by that principle, right? The uniform is always on. Young attorney, everyone's watching. You may think no one knows who you are. Someone may remember who you are if you do something wrong, right? And it's not about, you make a mistake in court. That happens. People make mistakes all the time. We make mistakes now. But you do something wrong, you do something sleazy, you do something without professionalism, I don't care if you've been an attorney for 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, whatever. That'll stick with you for the rest of your career. Can't wash that stain off. So keep that in mind, right? There's also no substitute for work. There's no fast track to it. Right now, quite frankly, 17 years ago, I could have probably done it in 7 maybe instead of 17, knowing what I know now. But the constant has to be work. There has to be that commitment. If you want to be mediocre in all aspects of your life, that's cool. Own it. Don't pretend you're something you're not. You know what I mean? And embrace it and understand what you want to be and where you want to go. And also to surround yourself with people who have gone where you want to go, right? Because there are a lot of people in your life that are comfortable with the version of you that they know, struggling below them on the totem pole of finances, of career path, whatever. Once you start changing, then all of a sudden your relationship with these people change, right? They're trying to put you down. They're trying to hold you down because that's comfortable. Because they're not growing, you're growing. Surround yourself. I'm not saying cut people out of your life like that just because you're moving on up, right? But surround yourself with people that have accomplished what you want to accomplish and then some, because those are the people you're going to learn from. There's a lot that I learned from other criminal defense attorneys who've been doing it less time than me, longer than me, whatever. But when it comes to growing a sustainable criminal defense law firm like a business, no disrespect to my friends, I'm not spending time talking about how'd you grow your business. Because what they've got is awesome, but that's not what I want. Right? So I'm talking to the business owners. I'm talking to people that are fixtures in the community. What was your big break? What can we do? To continue to be that. Why is a criminal defense firm here? I love hearing that. I don't see the connection. I live in San Diego, raising my family in San Diego. My business is in San Diego. Yeah, I'm from New York. Yeah, I moved here from New Orleans. Why is that a bad thing? I love pushing the envelope when it comes to that. Why is a criminal defense firm here? Why is he wasting his money on this community event? It's not a waste of money. We're trying to change people's lives. So keep that in mind. You're beyond a criminal defense attorney in every aspect of your life. There's no substitute for work, and you could throw it all away with one bad decision. Short-term satisfaction will affect your long-term future.
Man, you just gave out a lot of game. I hope you young attorneys, you young entrepreneurs, you listen to that because he gave a lot right now. So, David, thank you for coming by. It was good seeing you.
My pleasure. Anytime.
And do you want to shout out your social medias, where people can find you?
Sure. David P. Shapiro Law on Instagram. On LinkedIn, you can just do David P. Shapiro or Law Office of David P. Shapiro. From there, you could see the firm. You can see everyone at our firm. We're very upfront in social media. We don't like to hide who's at our firm. We embrace who's at our firm. We're proud of who's at our firm. We want our potential clients. We want our referral partners, everyone to know about us. David P. Shapiro Law on Instagram. Shapiro Criminal Law SD is another handle as well. Find one, you'll find us all.
And then you also have a free ebook on your website, right?
We do, yeah. Facing Criminal Charges, here's what you need to know to regain control of your future. We're actually working on an updated version on that. I did that one a couple of years ago. Want to be able to implement some changes in the law, some changes, quite frankly, in our own mindset, and provide some more differentiators in our firm now compared to even a couple of years ago.
Right on. Well, thank you again.
My pleasure.
It was a pleasure having you here. Let's hit him with the outro.